Testing. Three. How? Yeah, I was texting some buddies during this game. I think this area might have been the most boring of the season. Absolutely nothing was happening on the other end of the ice, and there were so many. Like it was hard large stretches of this game. Hey, we made it to the end mercifully. You got to come out happy. You just have to drag the transition over again, and it should. Uh, look, uh, the Sens are. I don't know how to the season. You know, they're run of the mill wild card chase team. They're rather pesky to play against, and they have some good young talent. They have some nice pieces. They have their deficiencies, but they just beat the league. I don't know what it is. Like I tweeted out tongue in cheek the stream. I'm like, the Suns won. Sky's still blue. I don't know. Like for whatever reason, Sens just have the Leafs every time these two teams play. I get it because I know it's going to happen. Uh, the chat is saying they can't.
Okay, let's try that now.
Did you mute yourself?
For some reason I was muted. I don't know why. Okay, I think we're good now. But yeah, basically, Greg, Pinto, and Amadio, as I was saying, were doing a great job at shutting down that top line tonight.
Yeah, look, I actually thought William Nylander of the bunch had the worst game. He got demoted to the third line in the latter stages of this one. He was having just brutal night with the turnovers. As for Marner and Matthews, he's not really injured anymore. He's actually been quite
Mm-hmm.
himself as of late. He had like 7 goals in 6 games or something in this recent stretch. He fully looks like himself again, but tonight wasn't the case. He just was rather invisible all night. And on the whole, the Sens just did a really good job keeping the Leafs to the outside. Toronto seemed to have little to no interest in trying to get to the net. And I mean, Ottawa was very content to just let the Leafs cycle to the outside. there were several cases where the Leafs would have extended zone time. There's one shift in the third, especially about halfway through, where the Leafs had a minute of zone possession time, and I don't think they even attempted a shot because they're just on the outside, and Ottawa's perfectly happy to give that to them. Why wouldn't you? They're not threatening you at all. It's very disappointing standpoint. Bring more and get some offense.
Yeah, I think the thing is with the Sens decor, and they've been fantastic defensively pretty much the entire season. It probably took them 10 games to get used to the defensive system, and yes, they haven't scored. They hadn't scored in over 60 minutes in the past 2 games, and they only got 2 tonight. But in those, 3 games, they lost 5-0 against the Rangers, and then only 2-0 with an empty netter against Boston, and then they won 2-1 tonight. So this team can really lock it down defensively. Another thing as well is their third pair with Kleven and Matinpalo. It's 2 guys that are 6'4" or above, and going back to the defensive part of it, right? Kleven and Matinpalo, with that chance, I think there was 3 minutes left to go. Holmberg had sort of a wide open net. I know Holmberg's not really your prototypical goal scorer whatsoever. But Matinpalo and Kleven did a great job at tying sticks in front of the net because I think that's an ideal third pair for the Sens, is they need a low event defensive pair overall to shut it down, and that's what they did right there. But let's go through the game here. So, of course, we need to talk about the attendance tonight. Seeing those videos right before the game, like, all right, man, here we go again. And maybe that's something we'll talk a little bit about later, but pretty much, I would say 70% Leafs fans in the building tonight, which is just insane. And I'm being generous with that stat, I think. But Bobby McMahon opens the scoring. Kleven and Matinpalo caught out there against the first line for the Leafs, and Martin makes a nice pass to McMahon in the slot. He makes it 1-0 there. You really felt like maybe the Leafs are going to start to run away with this game at that point because the crowd was into it. But credit the Sens, right? They kind of locked it down for the rest of the game after that.
Yeah, I mean, start was exactly what the Leafs want. Bobby McMahon was promoted to play on the top line with Matthew Nyes dealing with some injury issues, and it didn't really know how that was going to work. Overall, I didn't love how they kind of paired together as a line because Bobby McMahon, more of your kind of bottom six, that all he does is shoot, not much of a playmaker. And line with Austin Matthews, I think the stat was in the third period that McMahon had 6 of the Leafs 18 shots. Bobby McMahon obviously scores a good goal. Not the best fit in terms of, but for me was like after that goal, which was a great goal, the great pass from below the goal line. Love to see passes from below the line because the shooting passes so much higher, as you saw. But then I didn't notice the top line get really any danger. And the Sens, look, when you were talking about the Sens and how they've been with their defensive structure, it actually reminds me of the Leafs. The Leafs' defensive structure all season has been pretty good, but they can't score, which is funny with a team with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, but they cannot score goals to save their lives. The bottom 6 was just a hodgepodge of guys in this one, so it really felt like because the top 4 didn't have it going tonight, the Leafs just had no shot.
Yeah, for sure. And then eventually, Pontus Holmberg takes a penalty midway through the first period, as right now you are frozen. I'm sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties tonight. I feel like my computer is sort of cooked. As you can see, my, the framing, right? I could not expand it. So I feel like this may be one of the last nights that I have this computer. But going forward, Pontus Holmberg takes really an unnecessary tripping penalty up against Artem Zub, kind of near the hash marks. Zub kind of just does a little shimmy shake there, and then he trips up over Holmberg's, I think it was his foot. The the Sens actually go out and they have a 4-on-3 opportunity because Brady Tkachuk and Max Domi got coincidental minors, just, being classic Tkachuk and Domi. And I think it was Kampf, right? Kampf, who was at the top of the key, his stick breaks, so the Sens have a 4-on-2 opportunity. I'm like, man, we haven't scored in over 80 minutes or what it is at this point. We have to score here. And these guys they love passing the puck. Like, they want that perfect shot for some reason. And at this rate, I'm getting really impatient because having Norris not on that power play, it takes away a lot of the shooting, right? Because Timmy is a passer. He's always going to be a passer. You have to tell him to shoot more. Giroux, always being a passer, right? And then on that shift, too, Brady was not on the ice, obviously, and he's usually our net front guy. So you just have Sanderson, Giroux, and Stützle zipping it around like crazy. I mean, they're good passes, right? But I'm like, man, shoot the puck. Like, this is getting ridiculous. And so eventually, David Kamp's stick breaks. So it leads to a 4-on-2 because Kamp, I think he went off the ice for a second. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think it was the stick breaks, and in those situations, when the bench is close, you typically see the player just go try to get a stick because they're rather useless without one. And I think that's what happened there.
Yeah, and then pass over, I think it was from Sanderson over to Stützle. He takes the one-timer, finally shoots the puck, man, and it took a 4-on-2 for these guys to score a goal in the National Hockey League. It's crazy because this team has been lights out defensively, and you think with the talent they have on this team that they would be scoring 3 or 4 goals a night. It just has not been the case. But that was a huge goal for the Sens because obviously you get the monkey off the back for the whole team. And Stützle, who needs to shoot more, I think that really got him into the game a lot. With Timmy, for clarification, this is a guy that competes every single night. I know, there's always that discussion about, I guess, European players and stuff and their compete level, quote unquote. And with Timmy, with his diving and everything like that. But this guy, he competes every single night. So Sens head to the Sens and Leafs, of course, head to the first intermission with a 1-1 tie. Shots were 12-6 for the Sens, pretty surprisingly, I think. And it was sort of a goaltending.
Keep in mind, though, in the first, the Sens did have the 2 power play opportunities. That 5-on-5, I thought they were pretty even.
Yeah. Heading into the second period, the Leafs actually outshoot the Sens 12-5. Was there anything in particular in that period that you saw that the Leafs did quite a bit better than the Sens? Because at this rate, you had a feeling that the next goal wins.
I don't know if they necessarily did anything better. I think it was the Leafs. The Leafs are really good at blocking shots. They have Chris Tanev and Jake McCabe back there that do a great job of that. And part of their team identity is how they kind of pack the middle in the defensive zone and block shots. So I don't think the shot total is necessarily indicative of how that period was going. And how that period was going is it was boring. Oh man, nothing happened. Yes, the shots were 12-5. You could have told me there was 0-0 and I would believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, man, both games this year between the Sens and the Leafs have been boring. You go back to
the Leafs have 1 goal
in
those 2 games.
Yeah, Bobby McMahon with the only goal against us. Because, it was a 3-0 win for the Sens on the road. I think it was in November. And that's when this team really started to be good defensively. I think they have 7 shutouts on the season through 3 goaltenders as well. Marilainen has 2, Forsberg has 2, and then Ullmark has 3. So, man, it's you got to go back to the talk of the Battle of Ontario, right? Because the Sens are chippier than Leafs. I think the Leafs may be a little bit more now that Berube is there, but obviously the Leafs have always been a skill team. And the Ridley Gregg thing happened last year, of course, and you thought that was going to reignite it, but there's just not really a whole lot going on out there other than maybe the Domi and the Tkachuk stuff at the start of the game. But and then of course we can't forget, and I'm sorry for everyone listening that I forgot this, the Nick Cousins knee on Quinlan, is that his name?
Yeah, Jacob Quillen.
Quillen, sorry.
It was his first career NHL game, and 8 minutes into it, he almost had to leave due to an injury, which was really unfortunate. But look, he should have been such a great story, and I thought he actually had a few nice moments in this game. But it's a shame that his most memorable moment in his debut was almost getting his knee torn off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too when it's your first game and it's a tight game like that too, on the road as well. Because obviously your coach is not going to trust you as much as a guy like Matthews or Marner on the defensive side of the puck. What did you see on that play there, though? Because, listen, I don't want to be biased, and usually I'm harder on the Sens, but I think that Cousins has to understand that he has a reputation in this league. I think he knows that. He's seen the polls. I think last year was The Athletic. He was voted the most hated player in the NHL. And when you go across the ice like that, and I don't think he's thinking, oh, this is a guy in his first game, because hockey's a fast game. But you have to at least make some effort to not stick out your knee there, in my opinion. Maybe just stop up a little bit. Like, hockey's a fast game, right? It's a fast game. But I think Cousins could have done more there, in my opinion, to avoid it.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's such a bang play where Quillen dumps the puck in and then he's going off to change. Like, he is fully on, I'm done with this shift, I need to get off the ice. And you see this with, it's not every player, but there are a good chunk of players that in reactionary plays, when they commit to a body check, if someone tries to jump around them, instinctually pick out their leg because they're just trying to get a piece. And I think that's what Cousins does here, and it's just, his vision is what it is because of his antics, justifying what he did over the years. But I don't think him being greasy. I think, and unfortunately, in his head, he committed to trying to get a bump on Quillen there.
Yeah,
and Quillen, I'm just trying to get off. He tries to jump around him, and the instinct and Cousins is just trying to get something on.
Yeah, and I'm happy that Quillen was able to come back in this game too. It looked like, man, if that was your second shift maybe in the league, and bang, like you're out of the game. That
in front of all his family too.
Yeah, yeah, it was good to see him get up right away. Cousins, it looked like Cousins got the worst of it because he never actually ended up coming back in the game. And Cousins, for all the flack that he gets, is a pretty valuable piece for the Sens. Ideally, he's on your fourth line, but when he's not doing, rat things, whatever you want to call it, in a bad way, then he is he's an underrated scorer. He has some skill. And there's a reason why he's always wanted on a team. He's played for a lot of teams like Vegas, Nashville, Philly. He might be on like team 7 or 8 at this rate in his NHL career, and I think he's only 32. He has a lot of experience in this league, and he is a reliable 10 to 12 minute player out there for your team. I don't think this is an extra body on a team. He has some skill, and he can play in your everyday lineup. So, but yeah, moving on. We'll go to the third period here, where you just had a feeling that it was going to be the next goal is going to win because both goalies were playing very well. There wasn't a ton of high danger opportunities, I feel like, in this game where it had you on the edge of your seat. A quick play just down the boards. Thomas Chabot throws it to Highmore. Highmore's kind of streaking in. He shoves it towards the net, and it goes off of Pinto, who's got inside position. I can't remember who it was against, but it goes off his, I think it was wasn't his hand, it was his elbow, I think.
It was his knee.
Yeah, it was knee, yeah. So a weird play there, and then it passes Wool, and then Marner's beside the net trying to scoop the puck out, basically in a kind of a weird spot where he has to angle it out, but it's too little too late for Marner, and Pinto gets his 9th of the season.
Yeah, well, Marner did everything he could to try to keep that puck out on that play. Not the almost high sticking swat down. Very weird play. I saw some Leaf online that were a little upset at this goal because 2 months ago, the Washington Capitals had a similar type play. Puck bounces off his knee to the net, and it was a kicking motion. And that kind of set a precedent in leagues that if puck into the net, it's not going to count. But on this play is that Pin doesn't puck, it bounces off, and he tries to kick at it, but the puck is already going. So it wasn't necessarily that motion because and then he missed it when he tried to do that. So bit of a weird one, but I did see some leaders.
Yeah. And then right after that, Leafs can't score against the Sens. I'm trying to hype this game up more for what it was, but there was that Holmberg chance where genuinely I thought that puck was going to go in. That was their best chance though. And I mean, yes, the Leafs didn't do a whole lot towards the end, but credit the Sens for shutting it down because obviously you guys have a ton of talent on your team. That OEL pass, though, I think it was 45 seconds left. OEL had the puck at his blue line. He sends a pass, and then it hits a skate. And so that forces the play to go out of the offensive zone for the Leafs, and it forces a face-off in the neutral zone, which was like, thank you, hockey gods, for giving that to us. And then after,
in the last 30 seconds, Domi's skate blade fell off or something.
Yeah.
And Morgan Riley spent 20 seconds circling in his own zone. The Leafs spent the last 45 seconds, 30 of them were on their own and just couldn't get back. Just blocked up the neutral zone, and then they, with 10 seconds left, were able to try something. No urgency. They didn't even have their first line out until a minute left. They were running their fourth line out, 2.5 to go, and I'm like, guys, losing, right? But it just serious lack of urgency.
Yeah, not really any whatsoever. I'll take it as a fan, right? That's the thing. When you win the game, obviously you're okay with whatever score it is, and it was like a chore tonight, basically watching this game. I'm not gonna lie. Saturday night, Battle of Ontario, and that's what we get. On the losing side, it sucks because you're just watching this game and you're hating the team on the other side that's winning and playing defensive hockey because you're so bored watching it. But on the winning side, man, it's pretty good. But you know what? You guys are doing well in the standings right now. You're first in the Atlantic. You got a pretty comfortable position right there. We'll take the win. I think the Sens might jump into a playoff spot tonight after that, but Montreal lost in OT. Yeah, Montreal lost in OT. Boston won again. Detroit won. Who else around the league came out with 2 points?
The Sens are still going to be they're 1 point behind Columbus because both teams won.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't even matter at this point, right? Because the Bruins, who were people were saying, okay, they're going to slide now. It's time. After the Sens game, the 6-5 shootout win against the Bruins, that comeback, people were saying, okay, the Bruins, this is it. Now it's time for them to just slide off a little bit. And now they're third in the division again. So, do they ever go away, man? Do they ever go away?
I think, yeah, because
lost
to Detroit.
Yep.
Yeah, Tampa is having such a weird season where the Lightning have had 5 in hand for the entire season, and they're starting to finally backs, and they're losing them. So the Atlantic is they're so mediocre. The Leafs are 105 points, and they're leading by multiple. So weird.
And then the goal differential for Tampa, they have a plus 35, and they're in the first wild card spot. Boston has a minus 20, and they're somehow in the third. So The NHL doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. Washington with a plus 54. Like, that's understandable. Minnesota, who is third in the division, has a +1 goal differential, and they have a good record. They're on pace for like 105 points. Like, same thing as the Leafs, basically. And it's a weird season in the league, but you know what? As long as my Sens are in it, I'll take it. But before we head into the second segment, anyone in the chat who has any comments or questions, please throw them in, and we'll talk about them in the OT segment. But before that, where we're about to be talking about where we're at in the season, because we're kind of in the dog days, I just want to talk about our merch. Or sorry, not our merch, our Patreon, or Hyperdrive Hockey, where it's combining top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a fun atmosphere that will drive debate, make you think, and more. You can join Max, Daphne, and Kevin every Tuesday and Friday for your fill-in on the hockey world. You can also watch it on YouTube, on the Game Over Network channel, or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. You can also head to our website to check out for more of those details. Okay. This segment here in period 2, I think is going to be a little bit more heavy on the Sens because we are hosting the stream tonight. But you know what? Let's just get the Leaf talk out of the way. So the Leafs right now are 30, 18, and 2 with 62 points on the season. Is this sort of where you expected the team to be at this rate?
Record-wise, yes. In terms of, I thought like if they had this record, similar spot to the past few years, and that's usually good for third. But again, weird year in the Atlantic. But overall, this is about what I expected. The way they're winning games, I think, is a little bit more conducive to how really tightened down defensively. I thought Joseph Woll was the best tonight. And overall, it's tough though because the offense is not there at all. Like in the last 4 losses, the Leafs, they had a 3 wins in a row in between, but 3 totals, which when they lose, they don't on the big 4. So if Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and when he's healthy, John Tavares, if those guys aren't scoring, the Leafs aren't scoring. They have pretty minimal depth going on, and it's just not a good situation.
Yeah, and like the defensive hockey, because I think a lot of teams are just tired right now. Like we're struggling to score. You guys are also struggling to score. You're seeing the save percentage, I think, go up there for goaltenders, and games like 40 through 60 are, especially right now with the Four Nations right around the corner, I think teams are just tired, man. Like this break is going to be nice. Just to pick things up a little bit. I think there's around 2 weeks off. And of course, you're not going to be sending the whole team to the Four Nations. So, yeah, I mean, I had the Leafs first as well. Like your defense, I think 1 through 4 is better than it was last year because you add OEL and Tanev in there. Morgan Riley, though, man, he looks, I don't know what's going on there. We knew he was never a number 1 guy. But like you thought, adding Tanev and OEL would kind of lighten the load for him a bit. He does not look great out there. Minus 17, I think, on the season now. On a good team as well.
Yeah, I don't read into plus minus as much as I read into what my eyes are telling me. And what my eyes have told me this season is, like, throughout his career, Morgan Riley, he's been an offensive defenseman, right? He's never really been known for his defensive game. His gap control in the neutral zone will make you want to barf. He's really just, he's not good in front of the net. He's not that physical. But what is he good at? He's great in transition. He's a great playmaker, and he's great in the offensive zone, except that has gone away this year. He has not been very impactful offensively either. He's only on pace for like 30 points this season, which would be, if it's not a career low, it'd be a low for an 82-game season. So it's just the offense has died this season, and when you couple that with how he's been defensively his whole career, it leads to him sticking out like a sore thumb for all the wrong reasons.
if you had a team to play against in the playoffs at this rate, in this wild card race, you're probably, let's say you finish second in the East, right? And you're first in the Atlantic. You're playing the first wild card team. Out of the teams that are in the mix right now, because there's like 7 or 8 of them, who would you want to play the most being a Maple Leafs fan?
Well, it's tricky because you look at the standings right now. We just talked about how Tampa Bay has such a good goal differential, but the Leafs have weirdly had Tampa's number the same way that the Sens have had the Leafs number. Again, Tampa is the only team the Leafs have actually beaten in the playoffs. So I'm not scared of that matchup necessarily, but the drop off in terms of quality of team from Florida, and let's say Tampa wins the games in hand and they finish third. The drop off between Florida and Tampa down to the wild card is pretty severe. So, like Ottawa and Columbus have the Leafs number. I hope that that's a regular season. You figure it out in the playoffs. I don't think there's a reality Leafs fan would say they would play Tampa Bay over. It's not that, and Ottawa, like, right? It's not even about the fact that the Leafs would be a slam dunk in that series, but in terms of just quality of team, you just hope that you get one of the wild card teams there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, looking at the standings here, the Leafs are 3 points above the Panthers. I thought you had a little bit of a gap there, but Panthers are there. Panthers,
we've been losing,
but yeah, you guys are 5-5 in the last 10. Florida is 5-4-1 in the last 10. So, like, Florida started out really hot, and then ever since like game 20, it seems like they've kind of been around 500. There is some weaknesses on that team, because you look at their top four right now. They lost Montour, so you kind of have Mikkola as your number 3, and then you have Ekblad, who's a good defenseman, but he's not really your prototypical number 1 because he's had a tough NHL career.
He's also made of glass.
Exactly. So I think he's played most of the season, but Forsling obviously is their savior. Maybe not even obviously, because I think people just don't understand how good that guy is, but yeah.
Yeah, like, people talk about Barkov as the most underrated player in the league. No, he's not even the most underrated player on his own team.
No. So, yeah, I mean, Florida, 3 points back. The Sens are 2 points back of the second spot. It was a huge win for us tonight because this team can't afford to go on a big losing streak. And now with their record of 25-20, it bridges the gap just a little bit more. And then it just increases the chances of this team making the playoffs because we need that. Let's flip to the Sens.
So here, let me flip this around real quick.
Yeah.
I'll flip this on you real quick. Let's say the Sens were able to secure a playoff spot. They're the wild card teams. Looking at the East, the top 3 in each division right now, who would you want to see in the playoffs, and why is it the Leafs?
No, I don't know if I could handle that, though. I don't know. I almost am of the mind that I don't want to be playing Toronto in the playoffs, just because imagine, okay, the Leafs have had no playoff success basically whatsoever in the past. Was it 8 years now? There's
since 2004.
Well, sure. This, and imagine the Leafs beat the Sens in round 1. So, and let's just say they went on a run after that too. Ottawa would have been the team that would have started all of that. And just to hear like the Leafs fans talking and the amount of BS the Sens fans would have to take from a Leafs winning the series would just be horrifying for me on a fan note. However, it's kind of like a high risk, high reward situation, because if we beat the Leafs, then, and let's say Marner doesn't sign there, that would be like picture perfect for the Sens, because we're like that pesky younger brother, right? That's what we are, because you looked at the fans tonight. It was mostly Leafs fans, and the Sens haven't had success over the past like 8 years or so. It's been a long road to just get to this point. But if we came up with a win there, man, that would be awesome. But if I had to pick between Florida or Tampa, it's tough because they both won cups, right?
What about the Metro teams?
Metro, I actually wouldn't mind playing Washington. Because that's a team that's firing on all cylinders right now, and they haven't had adversity just yet in this season. They haven't. And they're sort of new-ish to the playoffs, I guess. You know, they don't have Backstrom and Kuznetsov anymore. Like, they made it last year, yes. Not new.
This version of the Caps, yeah.
Yes. Everything's going right for them. Everything is going right for them right now. But, like, I feel like the Sens could match up well there. Their goaltending is really good on the Washington side. Like, you're starting Thompson in net. But, I mean, when you look at the track record, Linus Ullmark up against Logan Thompson, you probably pick Linus Ullmark, right? The Caps, like, they're doing really well right now. But I wouldn't want to play against Carolina. We're losing that series every single time. And New Jersey, we could beat them, but I still think their ceiling is so high. And they've proved that they can perform in the playoffs. So I'll go Washington.
Fair enough. And look, like the Canes are obviously scary with the transactions they made last night, but they also have had their own playoff woes. So I don't know. I feel like if you're Ottawa, like, you just have to get in, right?
Yeah.
And once you get there, it's house money. And then you can give anyone trouble just based on the fact that you're playing free and you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, like, we just need to get in this year. And then, because we have the pieces, we have Stützle, Norris down the middle for the next 6 seasons or something like that, if you keep them. You have Pinto in the third line center spot, who is your ideal third line guy out there. Good defensively, pretty good on faceoffs, and is like 6'3", and can skate. So, like, Pinto is a guy that I think the Leafs need. They need a third line center.
That'd be great.
And I'm trying to think of guys who have been your third line center. Like, you had O'Reilly there, which was ideal.
Amazing.
But, you know, he left. David Kampf has been there forever. He should be your fourth line center or a scratch.
Yep.
So, like, going back, your last third line center probably would have been Nazem Kadri, and he's not even a third line guy.
He got suspended.
Yep.
He got suspended in the playoffs, so he wasn't even available. Like, the Ryan O'Reilly was the guy, except going in game like 78 or something of that season, he broke his hand. And so he was playing through a broken hand. So he wasn't even at full strength. And yeah, the Leafs have always had that void there. Now, granted, Matthews and Tavares are really good, and you kind of ride off that, but they need something in the bottom 6, because we cannot go another year where the bottom 6 just is an absolute net zero. You have to have another, just literally anything.
So if there's one area that the Leafs should tackle, part of the lineup right now for the trade deadline, what should it be?
Just a forward. And so I think it probably has to be third line center, but I think you do your big move as a center, and then you also do a second move to get another right-handed defenseman to play with Morgan Rielly, because Yanni Hakanpää's knee is it healthy? I don't know. He's played like 3 games all season.
Yeah.
So giant question mark there. You assume that the Gabe Tanev pair will repeat one of our lead. I think if you're playing Tanev and whoever, you would want to play McCabe Tanev against as much as possible. Someone that's preferably a good defenseman that's really good in his own end. Pair with Morgan Rielly, can play a little bit freely offensively and some insurance against the cycle and defending the front of the net. But 3C for sure.
I thought, maybe like when they signed him a couple summers ago, he was always sort of a winger, from what I can remember.
And he'll be back eventually.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, like an underrated part of the lineup I have found throughout the years is your third line center spot, because that's the guy that's going to have the tough defensive matchups. Like, how many players can you throw in for 13, 14 minutes of ice time and let them get like and use that effectively, because there's tons of guys out there that need 17, 18 minutes of ice time to get in the flow of the game and be effective. Those third line center spots are like your fourth line, right? Those are guys that have been on the grind forever. Like they need to go out there and prove every single shift. But the third line center spot, you got to be smart. You got to go up against the guys' top lines. You got to win the faceoffs. You have to score as well to some degree. You have to have 30 to 40 points probably. You have to have the ability to play on the second power play, but you also have to have the ability to step into a top six role and play those minutes when there's an injury down the middle. So a guy like Pinto, yeah, I'm happy we have him on our side. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But one thing before we wrap up this second segment here is that the Sens, they got to add something at the deadline, and it needs to be on forward. No, like they could add a defenseman, sure, but they don't need to, because Matt Paolo has been solid back there. They got Hamonic, who like those are just extra bodies you can throw out there, and then JBD has been a decent player so far this year. He can add a little bit more offense, but I don't know. Like the Sens, they don't really need another defenseman. They need scoring really bad, because I think at this rate they are 25th in the league in goals for, which is crazy because this team is like in a wild card spot basically, and the offense has not been good this year. So they got to add like a winger, not really a goalie. I think at this rate, I think because you saw Forsberg tonight, he was great. You just gotta wonder if he's going to continue that.
So would you go big swing at forward? Like, are you trying to go for one of the Vancouver names, or are you thinking like middle six, like just trade the fourth or fifth and try to just get a couple extra goals?
Yeah, I would say like a player like Ryan Donato, I talked about quite a bit. He makes $2 million. He's a rental. He has, I think, 12, 13 goals this year. The Sens need a finisher on their team right now at this rate. He can play some center. He can play wing mostly. You could chuck him out there on the second power play as well, and he'll do a fine job. And he's been used to being playing like a bottom six role in his career. So yeah, middle sixer for sure. Like right now, right, our top six is kind of locked in for the top five players. You got Stutzla and Norris down the middle. You got Giroux and Batherson on the right, and then you got Kachuk on the left. So there's just kind of that void right there on the second line. And Perron was supposed to be that, but he has played 11 games this year and he has 0 points. So Greg's not ready yet to be a top six guy. Pinto's your third line center. Amadio doesn't score enough. Cousins shouldn't be in the top six ideally. And Gaudette's been there quite a bit this year. He's like 15 goals this year in the top six for the Sens. He's pitched in, but the thing is that when he's struggling defensively, he kind of just gets benched out there. So yeah, we need a forward really bad. But if we're winning, I would want Steos to remain cautious and not overpay for a player.
On the flip side, if you guys like were to lose a couple games in a row and maybe fall a little bit further behind in the wild card race, are there any players that you would want to sell at the deadline?
Well, there's Giroux, but like just thinking about the UFAs on this team right now, because we've extended Greg. Gaudette, I don't think you're going to get a lot for Gaudette regardless. Like, yes, he has 15 goals, but he doesn't have a proven track record of being a good bottom six player. Cousins might get something, but like a fifth or something. Jensen's been great this year. He has another year on his deal. So no, man, like I don't think there would be a big trade that I would want to make right now, at least. But that's because we're winning games, right? So I'm not really.
So you're of the mind of stand pat, maybe a minor ad, but don't go too crazy.
Yeah, I would add one or two forwards if I could. But the thing is that the Sens are tied up against the cap right now. So
Mhm.
we need to get Perron in the mix more because that's $4 million right now on our cap. That's just kind of sitting there as dead weight because he's not scoring. $4 million, man. That's quite a bit of money for a player in your roster who has 0 points. So, moving on though, as our next segment and our last one before overtime is going to be about, I guess, sort of the the Leafs might be in an interesting situation maybe if you're comparing a Mitch Marner to Mikko Rantanen. But before that, I just want to talk to you all about our merch. We're Game Over's apparel line. It's dropped a long time ago, obviously, but if you want to feel the nostalgic pull of a retro skater design, you want to make a statement with our established design, or you want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you need another coffee and a toque to get through the winter, we have you covered. Just head over to our Game Over network page, and certain items are going to be on sale from time to time, so please go check that out. Okay, on the the trade was yesterday between the Carolina Hurricanes and I guess the Chicago Blackhawks too, but also
Don't forget.
the Colorado Avalanche. I didn't realize it was three teams that all had C to start with, but insane, man. Just to start that off, like, this is a Leafs and Sens post-game recap, obviously, but Mikko Rantanen, like, I just had to get this out of here, but like, that's a crazy player to trade. It, like, top
Well,
10 player, arguably.
the funniest part was this all started with a tweet from Elliot Friedman saying it sounds like Taylor Hall is going to Carolina. We're like, oh, Taylor Hall. That's a name. He's not having the best season, but Taylor Hall's going to Carolina. And then someone like tweeted out, it was like, oh yeah, Mikko Rantanen's going there too. It's like, excuse me, because in what universe are you trading Mikko Rantanen mid-season?
Yes.
It's insane. And the fact that the Avs pulled that trigger, obviously something happened with the contract negotiations. The Avalanche have an internal cap of, I think, 12.6 because that's what Nathan MacKinnon makes.
Mm-hmm.
So no one's allowed to make more than that. But man, the Stones to pull that trade off, and obviously people have their opinions on the value of what they got back, but I don't know if we've seen a blockbuster like that in a long time.
No, the last one that I can probably remember is the Huberdeau and Kachuk trade, but like that was in the middle of the summer, right? They had
Off-season,
they had time to think about that. That was a weird one too. I think it was Saturday night and they traded at like 10 p.m. It was so weird. And this one was like on a Friday night too. I think it came out around 8:30 Eastern last night. So a weird time to make a trade too. Like, man, Rantanen, who has been, if you go back to the last 7 or 8 seasons, he has to be basically top 5 to top 10 in scoring. And when you think about the Avalanche, right, you think about MacKinnon, Makar, Rantanen. Like, those are the core guys. You think about their power play too. You get Makar at the top, you get MacKinnon on the left, and then you get Rantanen as the left shot on the right. They just zip it around like crazy. They know where each other are, and then you pull that, right? And you, for Colorado, you add Natchez, who I don't know how he's going to fit there now.
You hope he develops into more of a center, but he's been more of a winger in his career so far. But I look, he's having a great season, and he, like, if he becomes a 90-point player, that works out fine for the value. But
I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, he played today, and he had a -3 rating, but that's, his first game. Like, Natchez is a great player, of course, but for Colorado, you add a player who has one more season on his contract, and then I think he will be a UFA. I'm trying to remember. Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, I think Nietzsche. Yeah, Nietzsche's is signed through next year, and then Rantanen is the UFA this year.
Mm-hmm. I I gotta hand it to Carolina. Eric Tulsky, that is a crazy addition to make mid season. Rantanen, like that player never comes up as a trade target whatsoever. He's either a guy you trade in the off season when your team like needs to take a different direction, or that's a guy that hits the open market and you kind of use as an own rental, and that's what I thought Colorado should have done. But to talk about the Leafs' perspective, I guess on this, Mikko Rantanen and Mitch Marner are kind of comparable in a way. Both
in the regular season.
Yes, yeah. They're both 2015 picks. They both spent a year in junior, or they didn't come into the NHL right away. 2 years later, they both entered the league, and they're both wingers, both right wingers. Both kind of lean on the playmaking side of the puck. However, Rantanen, I think, scores a little bit more. Of course, Rantanen has the cup. Marner has, one playoff series win. And they're both sort of like the second best player or forward on the team, right? You say Matthews is number one, and then Marner. And then for Colorado, it's McKinnon and Rantanen. So, and they're both UFAs this offseason. So Rantanen is reportedly looking for $14 million, which is right up there with Leon Draisaitl. From a Leafs perspective, right? Mitch Marner having a great season. I think he has one goal away from 20, but then he has about, 70 points.
About there.
Yeah, up there for scoring. And like has stepped up, especially when you need it to, because Matthews has been so this year and been injured. And Marner's really stepped up. Are you keeping him as an own rental, or if there's an opportunity that popped up with a sort of package that Colorado got, with Natchez, who's you have a little bit more time on that contract and you can kind of just think things over with him for another year. You add Jack Drury, who is like a reliable bottom six player, and a couple of picks. Would you ditch Marner for that sort of package coming back the other way?
I don't think so.
Nope.
And it's because Colorado and Toronto are in very different places as franchises. Again, as you mentioned, Colorado has the cup, and so the pressure to win this season isn't as high. You can afford to trade Mikko Rantanen for a younger piece in Nietzsche's and kind of retool a little bit and kick the can down the road, if so to speak, or you're going to flip those picks at the deadline anyways. But with the Leafs, you have to win. Like, Brendan Shanahan has been here for 8 years as team president and has won playoff series to show for it. And he is the reason the core four is still together. The second Kyle Dubas even thought about trading any of those big four guys, he was fired.
Yep.
And now Tree Living is here. They brought in a new coach, right, in Berube. And so Shanahan is the whole reason they're still together. So I don't think he would pull the trigger anyway. But realistically, Mitch Marner, if he puts it together in the playoffs, is a massive X factor in a playoff series that can win a series like if Mitch Marner could come out and score 13 points in a 7-game series and win the series for you. Like there's very few worlds where Matthews and Marner and like go off like that and you don't win a series. But obviously that hasn't really happened yet. Like Matthews has had his series here and there. Nylander's been in recent years better in the playoffs.
Consistent.
Marner's not had his signature series yet, right? Like where Matthews has had a series where he's had 5 goals in a series, 5 goals in 6 games. Marner hasn't had those moments, right? But the prospect of them is there. Like if he can put it together, he is that X factor. And I think you won't find any combination of pieces that can add up to be the potential X factor that Marner is. And so just for that, because the Leafs are under so much pressure to win, you have to keep him. Now, I would not play him on the same line as Austin Matthews, but I would definitely play him. I would keep him as a Leaf going forward.
Okay. Okay. And a little bit of a difference there in terms of the contract because I think Marner has a full no move clause.
Hmm.
Really dictates on, if he wants to get traded. And Rantanen, I think, had a minor trade clause. So, yeah, but then on the flip side, right? If you keep Marner and all signs are like, I'm not trying to hate here, but all signs are pointing to the Leafs once again, losing in the first round because the track
Hmm.
record's there for a
I
long time.
even if you win in the first round, can you realistically see the Leafs beating either Florida or Tampa? I get like Tampa maybe, but they're not beating Florida. Not in a 7 game series.
Probably not. No. I mean, yes, Florida lost some guys, but they're still so stacked on forward.
And just the way they play too.
Yeah, yeah, like they've done it. And I don't think there's a ton of pressure on Florida now because I mean they're Florida, right?
Because they
So
won. Yeah.
and yeah, so Tampa, they've already done their thing. They're playing with house money too. The Leafs, it's like because also Marner has not signed an extension yet. You are going to
Mhm.
go into the spring with this guy into the playoffs, and he's the guy that has had the most scrutiny.
Well, and basically, Marner coming back or leaving in free agency is going to entirely depend on how he performs. If Marner comes out and flops in the playoffs again and the Leafs lose in the first round,
Yeah,
he probably
he's
their
got to
Leafs
be
will
gone.
probably let him walk.
Mhm.
Shanahan would be gone. Like the Leafs are blowing it up basically if they don't win a round this year. So
But we said that
if
before. We said that.
yeah, but I the Leafs the MLSE like ownership has a new CEO and I think he's gonna make a move. There's no like if the Leafs don't make a move after losing in the first round this year, they're never changing anything ever again, and I will never place my faith. Not that I have much there to begin with right now, but yeah,
Also, Tavares is a UFA, so that's that.
he'll
But
be back.
yeah,
I
he'll be
think
back.
Tavares will be back.
Yeah, he'll sign like a 3-year deal at like 7 million or 6 million or something
Yeah,
like that. But yeah, if you lose Marner, okay, you're not missing a guy that's like clutch in the playoffs and stuff. But over an 82 game season, he is just he carries the
you get
load
worse.
basically. Yeah. Um, and
You absolutely get worse, and if you so you're basically using Nylander.
yeah, sorry, you cut out a bit there, but yeah, Nylander would go, and I think Nylander would be a good like right hand man for Matthews, and then you kind of have
Yeah, but
Tavares.
the sorry to restate my like if Marner leaves immediately and basically punting on Alexander's prime, uh, then your win would become like the cat where it's he's past his prime, but you've had to rebuild the team around it.
Yeah. Um, on the Sens side of things, right? So if you're the Leafs and you're going up against this team, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you be of the Sens in the playoffs? Because I need to see this team in the playoffs. I need to see Brady Tkachuk go out and have a huge hit to boost the crowd up. I need to see like a Tim Stutzle end-to-end rush. Like I need to see a Josh Norris OT goal because all I know, right, in my mind is the Sens in 2017 with their 2D logo with Eric Carlson, prime Eric Carlson whipping the puck around there. Like you're looking at Kyle Turris and Derek Brassard, who are both out of the league right now as your top two centers. Bobby Ryan, like that's so long ago, right? That's so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going up against this version, the Sens on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you?
So I'm 11. I'm terrified. I am like I'm scared as I could possibly be because the Sens have no pressure on them, and there is like the Leafs would be in every single aspect of that series, and that alone scares me. Regardless of like if the Leafs didn't have any playoff demons, and if it was just like in a vacuum, Leafs Sens favored in every aspect scares me. Couple that with potential for the Leafs to have a massive job like they did 2021 against the Habs. Everything be set up for.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I did not catch a lot of that, but we're probably gonna wrap it up here around an hour in. Thanks for joining tonight, and I think we will have one more combo between the Sens and Leafs later on in the season. So yeah, any last thoughts? I hope you don't get. I hope you don't cut off here with your mic and everything. Let's say your player of the game for both sides.
For Joseph Wall, because he made a couple on. For the Sens, I probably Forsberg on the other side. I think both goalies just had their jobs, and there was no.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a boring game, man. You can only talk about the game for so long as we're pushing an hour here. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining the chat here tonight. I see there was a couple comments on Ostapchuk, who was actually very good tonight on like the intangible sort of things. He was doing his thing out there. Yeah, of course. Another comment, I think Riley. We already kind of touched on that, but Riley has not been really himself at all so far this year, and I don't want to say he's washed, obviously, because he's not that, but there is another gear that Riley can hit, but he's ideally a number 2 or a number 3 defenseman, and he's been there a long time. Like, there hasn't been a ton of seasons where Riley's been off. I think that's a guy that can turn it around. It's just the ceiling isn't there, but I think he'll do better, ideally. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining tonight. Sens win 2-1 over the Leafs, and we'll see you in the next one tomorrow, actually. Game over Ottawa against the Utah Hockey Club. So we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining, everyone.